Okay, so we're back, and it's another Retrofriends Pixitron, resuming from where we left off. I had to move my Git repos, so we're not going to be using Git today, but um, just getting things going. Gonna just double check that it's still there. I moved everything from one VPS to another, so just double checking to see if everything's working. So eventually, I don't know if I'm going to do this today, but eventually we're going to have it so that it's actually split into two screens. One is the local and one is the remote, but I suspect today I won't get further than just working on the back end. So there's a question of, do we allow people to play single player? And in the case that there is single player, we would probably want to duplicate what's happening in the server in the local client. So all of the AI and the validation has to occur client side. And the validation has to occur client side anyway. So whatever we do in the server, we're going to have to do, everything in the server has to happen in the client and vice versa. As far as validation, this decreases the chance on the server side, it decreases the chance of cheating. On the client side, it will let us do that single player experience. So everything from creating a game to playing a game will have to happen locally as well as remotely. For now, we're just getting the very beginning of this going. So if I go into the index file here, we're going to take a look at the way that this is set up. And things may look a little different. I have a different set of highlighters going on, but it looks okay. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the existing actions and figure out a better way to handle some of them. I mean, certainly having them all in one file can be useful, but we would want certain actions to be taken care of in a different file just to keep the file from being crazy long. Right now it's already, well, it's only 125 lines, but some of them don't make any sense right now. And I think we're going to end up using MySQL Workbench further to create some other stuff. So let's just go through that first, since we want to have all of the data types available to us so we can build the actions for them. So these actions are, again, on the server backend, and all of them come in via JSON. Okay, so we're back, and we've got an open connection to my IP locally, which is one of the things you have to do. I think there's some additional security precautions I could take there, but this is fine for now. So you remember last time we created the game table. We're going to create some other tables here that have to do with setting up the game. So the first thing we're going to do is generate a friends table. So let's do that. So create table. And again, I don't use a lot of this extra stuff, so this is fine. We're going to call it friends. Friendship. Friends. How about friendship? Friendship. Okay. And what this will do is, create a situation where we can associate friends with a user. So let's just call it friend. And, friend is going to be an R user. So R user A, and then we're gonna have this is gonna be an int, so the user has to have a valid thing, and then we're gonna do not null unsigned, and R user B, and then a created date. All right, that should cover that. So if user A wants to block user B, we'll add that blocked by A. Okay, everything's going to be ints, so it won't be very big in the database. Blocked by B. Okay. So either person can block the other person. And there's also a status. So a status would be like an integer like requested by A. We'll call that status 0. Accepted. And then that's all you need is that. So that's good. Do we care about grouping them? I don't know. Maybe we have a little counter games played. I don't think we need that actually, because you'll be able to look through your old games to figure that out. Okay. A user of 0 is going to be, and there actually is a way for created to automatically get populated, but anyway, and then the status is 0. Okay, that should cover it. Primary key, not null, unsigned, auto increment. All right. So just add some more comments here to make everything kosher. By the way, if you hear the binging sound, that's just because there's a bell. And then we'll call it server. All right, and then just helps us to remember what they're for. A little bit more information. Okay, that looks good to me. We're going to apply that. Okay, it worked. Friend is there. So this bears to mind that there may be, well, yeah. So let's go back to the user table. And let's look at everything in here and make sure that there's not anything. So I changed company to Twitter. Forgot key, username, password. First name, last name is probably not necessary. We're not going to charge a monthly fee, I don't think, at least at this stage, to have a user account. But maybe we will eventually, I don't know. We'll worry about that then. And then, but we will be charging for the client. The client's going to be, something where you pay for the client for a couple bucks, and that helps to cover the costs, supposedly. I think what we'll do is we'll just limit the number of remembered games to just a few, and then if you wanted to buy Pro, so in that case we'll have a Pro. Well, whatever, we'll add that later. But you would have like a Pro account, and then you would have like a billing system attached to this. So I'm gonna wait on that. Probably use PayPal or something. I'm not really sure, but we're gonna go ahead and add some a nickname. So this is the your preferred nickname, and that'll be for like what you appear as in game. All right, that should be good. In-game appearance, and maybe a color or a flag or something. So I don't think people are going to upload flags, but why don't we keep some JSON data here? So we'll call this banner, not flag, because flag means things. And we'll just put a text in here, and that'll contain some JSON information that'll allow us to recreate the flag. That's good. Okay. So we made those changes. So now we've got that set up. I almost feel like deleting first name, last name, because we don't really want that data here. That's like, it's not really needed. So I'm going to delete that for now, and the billing system can handle that kind of thing. Might keep the email in there because you need a way to contact the user. So let's put down here Steam ID, Steam name, because presumably they'll be on Steam. So, they can add that if they want so people can find them on Steam. Okay. Why doesn't that work? Steam ID. I'm not sure why G is selected, so weird. Okay. Must have been that time I clicked and didn't do anything. Okay, so then we've got everything we need here. I'm not sure. The key thing, yeah, tiny text. That's not a bad idea for some of these. So nickname can be tiny text. Steam name can be tiny text. Some of these others, I'm not sure what code is. Code is your, I don't really know. Code. I don't know what code is. Is it in? It's not really used. So we can get rid of code. Don't know what code was. Could have just changed it. Well, let's call this access control level, and we're going to give this a tiny text. Or we'll just give it a text. Well, so ACL will be a way to tag users with special abilities if we want. Metals. Metals can be another text, and that'll be like, your metals history, I guess. I don't know. Just have it there if you want it. Okay. All right, that's pretty good. So let's look in here and decide what we want to do here. So we don't want users. We want friends. And so we can get rid of users and user. Let's just go through the actions one by one, and then we'll talk about what they're doing. So for identify, you're actually sending back information about the user's origination point, their session ID, which they would have to have. So well, yeah, you don't want them to be able to identify information about themselves. So, all right, let's grab that. So what these three lines do is this sets the identification to this identify thing. It's not going to tell the user about itself all the time. So what this was doing is sending back information about the communication. But one of the things that it was sending back is the session ID. And we don't want to send that back. Well, I guess that comes in. So where does session ID start? Session ID, okay, so this doesn't have to be there, actually. I'm sorry. You sent the session ID. You sent the headers. You sent the session, I think. Yeah, if you sent a session ID, then you had a valid session, and it will tell you about the session. I think that's what's going on here. And if not, it'll be empty. So this is just so that the user can ping the server and get some information about itself. Down here we have the login. So sessions are actually not tied to IPs. So if you were like in a cell phone kind of situation and your IP changed, it wouldn't affect your session. Your session only lasts 5 minutes now. It was lasting a half an hour before. So if your client hasn't done anything in 5 minutes, then your session closes automatically. So here we have login. So the first thing that we do for login is we look to make sure that the JSON contains the two factors of logging in, which would be the username and password. If it doesn't, then we don't continue. So end transmit kills the script. There's nothing more after an auth end transmit. And it gives you this error message and this code. Okay. 102 just means an authentication issue. So there can be other codes that are made up. Anyway, if you do have those things, it then attempts to log you in, and if you don't log in, then it's going to end the session telling you that you couldn't log in. Otherwise, and these are supposed to be things that you can show the user directly. So you could pop up a box that says could not log in, no password set. So if session ID happens to be false, that means that you can't log in, and you need to get a password reset email. And I don't know if that's working, but it could be. And then session ID equals null. So if it's a null session, that means that no session was generated, therefore it's empty. This is part of that type hinting in PHP. So the triple equals means, is it set equal to this value and of this type? So if it is truly null, then we know that you gave us a bad information. You didn't have the right password or whatever. Otherwise, it will tell you that everything's cool, and it will give you your session token. Okay. So you can actually repeat this as many times as you'd like, and it will log you out of previous sessions whenever you log in. So you can't log into multiple devices and play against yourself, for instance. You also couldn't have a bunch of people sharing your account. It's just one login. One login. So this actually, so you could have multiple accounts but you can't view the game unless you are that person. Now that's a design decision, because maybe you want to have your iPad set up as a viewer and then play on your desktop. Well, we don't currently plan to have an iPad application, although we might want to eventually. And I don't think we're actually going to do a web application either. I think anything that would be on the web about this game directly would probably just be marketing to get you to go back to Steam and to buy the game and play it in the client. So this is, trimming. You can't do everything. I mean, maybe we would add that if the game got successful or something. But this is one of the areas where that would change. Then there's log out, which is you're just trying to indicate that it's time to log out. So you have to have a valid session token, etc., etc. Okay, so actually, I don't know why session ID matters up here. I'm not sure we would send that. It's probably just a number, but whatever. Okay, so forgot. Forgot is going to tell the auth to send an email with a specially generated forgot key. And I'm going to look into that actually right now. So I know that my system will send an email. It's not the most pretty email right now, but it's a way to test it. So let's just go to the back end. Okay, here we are on the back end. And I'm going to log in as guest. Now, I'm not sure why this login works because there is no user in the user table, but let's just see if this works out. Interesting. So we had a HTTP error 500. So like I said, I moved this. All right, and we're back, and the problem is fixed. So I was able to log in as a guest. It said I wasn't actually because there is no guest user. So we're going to actually manually create the first user. And to do that, we're going to have an empty password, which is a special way for us to create this user. So inside of MySQL Workbench, there is this little thing that looks like a table. And here you can either write an insert, or you can come down here, is to click this insert new row button. And just set the values right here, and then click apply. So the username, the password is a single space. Email verified, yeah. Okay, so sorry for the interruption there, but you just type in the values here and then click apply. It generates the code for you. Oop, what's the problem now? All right, I don't know why, but you have to put a 0 in for that. Oh, any number has to have some sort of a value. Does it work now? Banner's not supposed to have a default value, but we'll do that. Not sure why it's required like that. Ackle. Why can't I? Okay, so nothing, just a space, apply. Okay, so it was because it was not null. All right, so there. Now it's in there, and there it is. So, geez, not easy to get that done, but not too bad though. Just 1 your name, whatever. This actually was supposed to be. All right, so now we've got a username of Lost Astronaut and a password of nothing, a single space. All right, let's see if that works. Okay, did not work. No password set. Check for password reset email. So I'm not sure if that's working or not. Let's find out here by going into the shreds folder, locating the auth PHP. This is where we implement the logic behind the authentication. We're just going to look through here until we find. Okay, so forgot generates that, and then it does use the mail function. So if your server's set up to send mail, is 1. So we just go user ID equals 1. All right, new password. Now we have everything we need. We can just pass that to auth. And, fingers crossed, this should work. let's do a var dump on what this returns, and we'll know right away if it worked out. So, okay. Strange that it would say that. Let's see if it's set in the database. So we'll refresh here, and the password is still empty. So that's strange. This is designed so that it can be run from the command line, but it gave me a return code on that. And actually, that was just a direct return code. So I suspect that in somewhere along the line, there was a problem where it just threw that error. So we just want to go through page here and make sure that it's doing it. So it includes auth. So core auth is going to set the standard here. And I think what has happened is, yeah. So down here, there's a suppress auth. Right. What we really want to do here, well, we can either set the global suppress auth to 1, or we could say if PHPS API equals CLI, then we're going to suppress auth equals 1. Okay, so what that will do is it will force it not to not use the authentication, so it won't require anything, because check API keys is going to return that code. So that should fix that. Although the other way to handle that would have been to set in here global suppress auth, and then that would have probably done the same thing. But let's find out if that worked. So we're just going to run it again. Okay, so it said false. Not sure what that means. Let's look in the database and make sure that it did what we wanted it to. And no, it didn't. So that's interesting. So let's take yet another look at auth.php. Or not that one, but shreds auth.php. And it looks like it should return true, which means that the password was too short. Right. So let's make it guess. So, all right. It returned true. Let's look in the database. Let's give it a refresh. And there is a value in there. And so now when I go here, I should be able to type guest and do a request. And we logged in. We got a session token, which we can stick up here. Okay, so now we're logged in. And we have our user. Jeez. And with that, it's almost like the session is over. What have we done today? I don't know. But we're going to do a little bit more, and then I'm going to wrap it up. So we've got that. You can log in, leaving us. So we learned some things. We didn't get an email like we thought we would. All right. And I'm just going to double check right now one more time to see if we got that email, because sometimes it just takes a while. But again, certification. This server does not have a cert, so if it sends an email, it's not going to necessarily get delivered, because people along the way are, looking at your email and they're going, oh, this is not certified. This is probably spam. Now, it's interesting to me that it didn't end up in the spam folder. And if I go to unread emails, I'm not seeing it here. So let me just double check to make sure that my email address is correct. There's other ways to handle this stuff one thing I would suggest looking into is Twilio. Twilio is just like a way to send texts and emails and messages. And you can look in here, and it's got programmable SMS. You can orchestrate a phone call, so you could do the whole Google. You get this number, and this number is not. We'll never ask you. So there's some stuff in here. There's like an auth system you could use, but what we would really be interested in is a way to send a mail without worrying about having it be certified. A text would be okay too. It could have a link, and then you go there on your phone, and so that whole system has to be set up for forgotten passwords. It seems like, because in Page that stuff works, but you have a website. In Poppy there is no website, so even though there's a forgot password button, there's no way to set your password. So we're going to have to build that out, and I guess we can do that now. So to do that, we need a forgot. Oh, we have one. What's that look like? It looks like in here you have to send a special request that encapsulates these two values. Basically, what's happened is in the forgot.php, it's set up to do this on the web. Well, that's useful and all, but we're doing this entirely in an API now. So that was fine for whatever, but inside of here we have actions. We have a login action, a forgot action. What we want is to add a new action, and we're going to put it in here as set password. Okay. Set forgot, something like that, or forgot. Actually, let's put it under forgot. So when you do forgot, you have to have the email. What we're going to do is we're going to look up the user. That's fine, and then it runs forgot automatically. But what we want to do is see if is set J2. Now we want to set the password to something. Else we're going to do the regular forgot action. Okay. So this is pretty simple. What we're going to do is we have the user. We're going to set that using auth set password, user comma, and then the value of 2, whatever the user typed in. Now on the client side, we're going to have them type that in twice and do validation, but there's no need to send that twice. So we're just going to send it once, and we're going to see what happens. So if result is true, we're going to send a result, and that is going to be a successful result. So it says your password has been set. You may now log in. And that should take care of that. Otherwise, we're going to send them a negative. So we'll use auth and transmit to send that. And that'll say your password was not secure enough. Your suggested new password was not secure enough. Try another. because I know that set password will check to see if it matches the minimum requirements, which in our case is actually just, is it 8 characters? That can change later. You can modify the set password of the auth shred to do something else. Now we're using a shred with auth because we don't want to use a model with auth because we're not using a database, but a shred is just something that's included, and in this case it's a class that has a bunch of abstract functions. So we're going to send a 102, which in our world means error, and that will allow us to use the API as it is to send the forgot password new suggestion from a user's client. And that's everything we had to do. So there was a bunch of stuff going on in the forgot.php, which we don't even need to do. So let's look at briefly shreds auth, and let's go down to set password, and let's just see what the value is. So if it's null, that means that there was no user. Well, we've already checked for that. Now the only thing you could possibly send is false or true, false being the situation where it didn't match our security settings. So right now our security settings are, is it 8 characters? You can actually use a variety of different methods to validate that password. False would mean that it did not pass security muster. And, why not just mention that here? Invalid user. False, not secure enough. And then true, everything is set. So that's what that does. Now you can actually remove the forgot.php, but let's just look in forgot.php, see if it does anything else that matters. No, not really. So I'm going to get rid of forgot.php. Okay, so now we only have one endpoint, but we might have others. Another thing I want to mention is, and I'm going to do this soon, is there's a lot going on in this already. We might want to move this to another file. It's fine. We can add it to the shreds. We could include it as a module. So a module is just a folder that doesn't actually get automatically included, where you can place a library that you want to place. And everything is assumed that you've already included core page and set it up the right way. There's not that many things. I know it sounds like there's a lot of different things you have to worry about, and I've run into several errors today. I mean, this is kind of a chopped up session because I ran into issues that I had to fix that were settings. Once you've set the site route, once you know what these globals are, suppress auth, database, headers, is admin, all those things. Once you understand everything, and again, all you have to do is read the core. So just a little recap. In the core folder, you've got all the stuff the page includes, and one of them is path. Path contains, your site route. If this wasn't set properly, you'd run into a database error or a null execution or some other issue, a stack trace. You have to make sure to set everything in settings, which is a separate folder. Make sure that that's all set up and made unique for your site, like the salt and the pepper and all that. And then, everything, all I had to do to add the forgot password functionality was to add these lines and put them in an if statement, so that if you did set what you wanted to change your forgot password to, as long as you had your email address and what you wanted to set it to. Well, there's actually one other thing that we should do, and that is add the forgot key. So the way we're going to do that is pretty simple. If is set j key, all right, then what we want to do is say if str pause. Okay, so that's string position. User key. Well, all you have to do is do a direct comparison. So let's see what the direct comparison is. I think it's strcmp, but let me double check. Now in another window I have php.net open up. So okay, so all I have to do is do string comp jkey equals comma user key forgot key equals 0, and then it's actually not equals 0. Then you want to auth and transmit that forgot key was invalid. Okay, and then if you wanted to do like now equals, well, we already have a now. Up here at the top we have a today. All right, this gets you the current Unix timestamp of the current second or millisecond or whatever. So then down here in forgot, if today is greater than the int val of user forgot expires, right? Then we have an issue, okay? And the issue is that your forgot key has expired. So what we'll do is we'll do an auth forgot, all right, on the user, and then we'll say auth and transmit. I'm not sure. Auth forgot may have already ended the transmission, but I don't think so. So you say that key to reset your password was expired. Sending you a new key in your email. Check your email for a new key. Check email for a new key. Check your email. All right. Wording. So then we could show that to the user. So what that did was just make sure that, if today is beyond the time that it expired, then we don't want to allow the user to use this forgotten key to set their password. Okay? So that's only in the case that there is a key set and that key was sent to them in an email, and then they had to put it into a form that's on the client only. Then they had to put in a new password that they wanted, and then they had to confirm that new password. The client checked to make sure that it was set, and then it sent this request with the forgot action, and it set up and did everything that was necessary. So another thing I want to do is take this switch statement and move it into a file and make a class around it. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up the call to that class as action, as API : action, and then we're going to send along everything. So the J, right, and then the action, right? Well, actually, action J, which is the JSON data that we were given. All right, and that'll take care of it. So just so it's not in this file anymore and can be maybe moved around a little bit. So we could even send it index. Why don't we do index action? That way we can have separate ones for different endpoints and place them in a separate file. So the way I am going to do this, because I'm using Nano, is just to copy index into shreds. All right. And then I'm going to go into shreds. I'm going to rename it to API. All right. And now I'm going to edit that file again. And we don't need any of this stuff. Okay, all we need is this temporarily. We're going to need that JSON. So let me save that last line there. So now what's going to happen is we're going to create a class called action or API. It doesn't extend anything. And in it, we're going to place a function called action, and it's going to take an endpoint, which would be index, and then it's going to take an action and a JSON decoded thing. All right. Now in here, we can go like, well, first of all, we want these globals to be here, but you're going to have to do them in every function that you're going to use them. So that's kind of annoying. But you know, I think about this another way. We could do API, and then there's a way to do a constructor. So let's look into auth and see how their construct is set up. Well, there isn't one for that. So instead of it being, it's not going to be static. It's going to be, you know, non-static. So we just want to look at the construction. So here's how constructors are set up. So instead of it being, so we're going to actually have to change this call, but basically API will get endpoint action J. All right. Now we're going to set up all of the local variables, which are the copies of this global. So we're going to go like this, headers equals headers. All right, so this is actually not correct. This needs to be function construct with 2 underscores. All right, and it's going to be like headers, this session ID equals session ID, this session equals session, this session token equals session token, this database equals database, this auth equals auth, this user equals user, this is admin equals $ is admin. So now we've roped all that in here. It's probably superfluous, but you know, this is fine. And then now we're going to have action called on action automatically. There's a little bit of a delay here, man. What is that? All right, action. So it's really this action endpoint action J. Now we can go and we can say switch endpoint there's only one right now, so we're going to call it like that, and it's really $this that. All right, so now we're going to call only the index actions from the index, or anything that identifies itself to be the index. Now we're going to take our big old switch statement, and we're going to handle that in there. So as we go through, we're going to just set it up to be we want it to be. So case identify, we're setting that to that. That's fine. But we have to add this in here. All right, so this actually makes it a little bit more complicated as far as code, but it lets you move it to another location, so you don't have to have everything in the index file. It can be in its own files. And in fact, this index action. This thing can be broken out into another class called like API.index or something like that. That'll allow you to take care of that, because this won't be a static thing. So we've got all this. Now we just got to make sure that everything. We have to pass it $G as well. So it seems. So we're gonna have to, a little bit of duplication here. And just store this. All right. Now for identify, we're just going to set up a JSON response. But likewise, we could say function index identify, right? And then we can move this out of there. And put that in there. We can make it even simpler. So now we know that it's going to end on that. Or that actually may not be what we need to do there. Well, let's see. In index, it just echoed that out. Right, so all right. So the reason I did it this way is because this is more conformant with some of the other stuff. So just so it looks like everything else. All right, so then that's nice and wrapped up. So then we're actually going to create a static function here called respond, and it's going to take JSON. So again, just cleaning up and moving stuff around. And what respond will do is just echo JSON decode JSON and then die. All right. So then here we can call API : respond, and we'll send that along instead of calling it that way. Okay, so then that one's done. Now we need to make one for login. I'm going to change this to okay. So with login, we've got a little bit more going on. So this is what's going to happen down here. Instead of that, it'll be API respond. Okay. And see here how it says result. Well, we also have a result here. It's actually spelled wrong. All right. So that's just, again, conformant. Now we don't have this $J thing, so we're going to have to pass that in. And session ID is actually of this. So another thing that this gives you when you do this kind of organization to your code is that it's localizing these calls. So they're not going to interact with each other, which can sometimes be a problem if you have a big, complicated thing. So this is good for the structure of the program, in that we've taken something that was all on one level and now we've localized it, and we're sort of cleaning it up, making sure that it looks the right way. Later on, we could even break out some of these messages into some sort of like a file that internationalized it and have some sort of lookup. So there's lots of great reasons why organizing your code is a good idea. Change the name of this one. All right, so now we're passing J in. Let's see, we've sort of whittled down the amount of data we're thinking about at any one time. So logout is so simple that I almost don't want it to be a call, but I am going to make it a call. We actually don't even need J, so so that takes care of logging out. And you see this one was getting kind of long, so it kind of needs its own function. All right. Good. Just making sure that everything lines up. So here we got this JSON equals thing. We need to change that to API respond. Just format it nicely. And get rid of these. Don't need them. Then down here, we want to do another API respond. Now you'll see here that there is actually a pattern forming that I should probably contain. There's this concept of it's successful, therefore send this message and give them these values. Instead of just respond, it could be better if I went right? So then we're going to do always JSON code array result success. To be like message, and then JSON. The problem there is that well, null or false would be actually okay. So why don't we just do that? That's fine. So it's always going to send something, and then that closes off. All right. So now we have a success response, right? So we're going to, and then die. That's it. There's only one response per show here. So where we said result success, we're going to do success. And we're just going to pass the message. So the message would be your password has set. You may now log in. And the values is going to be result. All right. So now the API has a predictable workflow. All right. And we don't actually have to do like an else here because there's no reason to worry about that. And we don't even have to pass result here, but it's fine. So what I'm kind of getting at here is that, you know, when success happens, the execution stops. Maybe we don't want it to die all the time, but pretty much we do. So when you're sending your response, your execution has to be already complete. That makes sense for almost all the, you know, we'll write something else if we need something else, but that should be fine here. Once again, we have that. And we're going to return forgot email code sent, or forgot code sent to your email. Please check your email. And then again that. So it was a successful operation there. And then forgot would be called like this. Okay. You get what's happening. Okay. And we actually may want to do something like endpoint there, so that we know what kind of a function this is. And we can make this the default as well. It's a break. All right, we're not going to actually do this line. We're deleting that. And then API login, API logout, API forgot. Should be all right. Now we got to do me. So in this rare case, we actually have another case here where we don't want to say success or not. What we do, but we're not sending a message. So we're going to call that one data, and we're going to have that, and then we're going to go, then we're going to go API respond array result success, and then that data values, and then values. Maybe a type would be good. Now, another thing about putting it in this class form is that later on, we can make it more complicated. For example, we could have it so that the server will accumulate data that it needs to send back. But for now, it's all just call response. So my profile would call API data, and it's going to send that as the values. Okay. So what remove keys does is it removes keys from the array that we don't want to send. So we don't want to send them their password back. We don't want to send them their forgot key or their forgot expiry. So sensitive data that we don't want to share. But anyway, that takes care of that one. Now there's just date time, which is extremely simple. It just sends the current date time. Whoops. Okay. And then respond. So this is again a data. So we'll just do that. Okay, so we need to add today. ISO means International Standards Organization. Right, so we're sending a type now. So the type for data is my profile. And the type for this would be date time. And we actually don't need this. We'll just send it all in one shot. So that's fine. So I'm changing the API, but there's no other side to this right now. If there was a client, I would have to handle that. So we're going to get rid of these things. All right, that goes there. Well, actually goes in. And we're just going to move this to the top of the file. I see a typo that I have to deal with. And we should probably mark these sections. Endpoint selectors. Here we have an action. So we have these response types. And then we have individual responses. And now it's all wrapped up. So this should be okay. There is this typo I've got to take care of. Just want to make sure I haven't missed anything. Looks okay. We need to do this today. We need to get today in there. So we're abstracting away from the classic PHP maneuver. I mean, if you had downloaded this and you started working on this, you don't actually have to do all this stuff. But for us, you know, this is going to be helpful. So you just kind of move it into your own setup. And actually it would be this, or API equals new API index action JG. We don't need this line. We don't. I can keep that line. All right, so now our index file is only 37 lines. The rest are all hidden, and it's just the SSL setup, which we could break out into a module. All right, so pretty much everything's going to go through this single endpoint, but there might be other ones, you know, whatever. All right, I'm curious to see if it still works, because we've done a lot of changes there. So let me just refresh this, or here, I'll just do request. Up, there's a problem. So it's probably a syntax error. So if you do -L lint, you can lint out your API.php, and I'm betting it's in there. It is on line 59. So on line 59, we have this. We forgot that. All right. Let's lint it again before we go and try to execute it. There's a problem on line 76. Looks like we've got one too few of those. So that should fix that. Not sure about that. I think I see what's happening there. So it really should look like that. All right. Up lines 121. There's a problem there. It actually needs a this here. But there's another issue there. Again with the move keys. So there we go. And then respond. Oh, it needs to be JSON encode. JSON encode. All right, let's try it. Bang. Okay, so there you go. We've created our own. So we fixed the forgot. What did we do today? Jeez, what did we do today? We did the forgot email setting. We reorganized the index.php file. We created a new table for friends that we didn't implement. We created our first user. We set the password using an automation script, which can be run only from the command line, even though it is sitting in the web folder, which is not a good thing, but you can move it around later. And we created this API class with all of its endpoints. We normalized the response types. We added an optional endpoint thing to the backend tester. We fixed database issues. We fixed settings issues. And we made great plans. and we could keep doing this today. I just feel like this video is so long that I'm gonna have to move on to another video for this, and it's gonna take forever to edit it. So, listen, thanks for watching. I promise that next time we're gonna do stuff that's more close to gaming. It's just web stuff. You have to do it. Back end stuff. Also new VPS. So I'm going to cut the fed on this video, try to get it as short as possible, skip over a lot of the things. Wanted to point out one little nuance that I'd forgotten to mention earlier. In MySQL Workbench, if you have something selected and then you hit refresh, it's still selected. So you're still seeing the old value. You have to click off of it. Or click on something else to see the new value. So that might throw you off. Next time we're going to do, I don't know, we probably more actions. And then once we have all of the actions for the two tables, game and friend, ready, and some of the user actions, we will then go to the client side in Pixitron and start implementing the login sequence and moving some stuff around inside of the client so that the login sequence happens first, and then that's followed by create a game and maybe add a new friend and stuff like that. So we're going to figure out some of that workflow next. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Pixitron is a ongoing project where I teach you how to make a front end and a back end with a local client and a remote server, so you can play a turn-based strategy game. Have a great day. Looking forward to it, and I hope to see you in the next video.